So, Vivek, back
Yes.
in 2012, when you were at Reliance Industries, you applied for two .brand TLDs, .reliance and .ril. What was your role at the time and what was your involvement in the project?
Yeah. So Stuart, we applied for four, and one we did not get, but we got three. So at that point of time, I was a senior brand manager in Reliance working on a new project, and somebody in the company found out about this new program, and the chairman was very excited about it. So he knew that this is something very new, innovative, and could go a long way. So he asked around and decided to give me the project to handle it. Since it came in from the chairman at the very top, we did not have to do a lot of, bottom-up convincing and getting approvals for it. So that was good for us. But then we had a hard road ahead of us, like everybody else who applied for one.
Interesting. Okay, thanks, Vivek. How did you actually become aware of the opportunity to get your own .brand?
Yeah, we wonder about that ourselves. Who was the bugger who got this started on this road? It was a large organization. I think we had an entity in the US, and the head of that person was into technology, and they came to know about it and passed it on. But before that, I had never heard of ICANN. Domains was not something that I knew much about. So it was quite a revelation to know about this whole industry that exists on domain names and a body that manages it.
So, how did the company reach the decision to apply, and how did you decide on the applications to make?
There was a lot of discussion about it because, just like me, there weren't many people, or there were hardly anybody in the company who knew about domain names, or for ICANN for that matter, or about TLDs, so to speak. So even though we had approval from the chairman himself, still the application process itself and the application needed support from a lot of different areas in the business. You needed support from the company secretary for company information, from the finance team, legal team, the IT team, and the marketing. So it was an uphill battle to first explain to them about domain names, TLDs, ICANN, and why this is such a great idea and how will we use it. Because honestly, there wasn't any information out there because it was happening for the first time. So it's not like we can pull in case studies and say, hey, look, these guys did it and they were so successful. How about we also do it? We were all working off the vision that was handed down to us and trying to come up with scenarios that we can use this fantastic thing in the future. So it did take a lot of convincing to a lot of departments on why we should use it, but we got there at the end.
And how did you decide which the four that you wanted to apply for?
Right. I think that one, the three of them were quite easy to decide because .reliance, the name of the company is Reliance Industries Limited. Our ticker symbol is RIL, and that's how it's popularly known. So .RIL was another easy decision to make. And we were launching a new service which was going to change the face of India when it came to communication, and the brand had just been decided. So .gio, J-I-O. So those three were easy. And then Reliance also owns a very popular cricket team called Mumbai Indians. So there was an idea to apply for .Indians and then add Mumbai at the second level and make that a popular thing. But that was the one that didn't go through for obvious reasons.
Okay.
Going back to a comment you made just now about having to think internally about how you would use your .brands. What was the main use case that you kind of thought of and saw internally for a .brand?
Right. Few of the use cases were, see, at the end of the day, you don't own a domain name, right? You always rent a domain name. So it would have been it is a great opportunity, and that's what we decided back then, that to own a piece of internet space, to own a space that you can call your own and have it be ready and secure for all your customers and consumers and internal stakeholders, so that everything on it is verified and genuine. that, along with the way the Indian internet industry is going to grow, we knew that scams and phishing attacks and domain abuse is going to be a big reality. So having a space where you can convince your customers and tell them that this is a safe space, anything that ends in .go or .ril is absolutely 100% safe for financial transactions, for accessing your services, for anything, was going to be a big deal. It will make a real difference when it comes to competition, and is going to, especially in the finance space, if you're offering financial services, having a space like this makes a huge difference. So that was the primary goal, to go for this. And then definitely the marketing team was very excited of the different opportunities. You can play around with TLDs for different marketing campaigns. So there was definitely a lot of buzz around it. And after the convincing, everybody was on board to see on ways to use it.
So how did you and the team manage the application process internally?
Yeah, we looked at the guidebook and decided somebody else is going to read it. No, just kidding. We looked at the guidebook, printed it out, took it home, and started going through it line by line, because it was a document, significant document. So we formed an internal team where we had somebody who represented from the marketing side, somebody from the legal side, somebody from the tech side, somebody from the company secretary side, and I was managing this whole team, plus we had an external vendor. So it was our responsibility to take decisions together collectively, but everybody, we cannot just be dependent on an external provider. We ought to know what we are doing so that we can make smart decisions, because just like us, this was the first time for the vendors as well, right? They were doing the best they can, but it was the first time for everybody. So we had external help, but yeah, given all the challenges that ICANN itself faced in the first round, and given our best efforts that we could, we did not submit the application till the very last date.
Just thinking now about the ICANN application process itself, how complex was it for you?
Building a rocket would have been easier, right? I remember the first time when you had to buy a slot, then you had to decide that, okay, you have a slot now, and then they decided they could not figure out the priorities. So they launched. So the challenge was, you had this whole guidebook which was well laid out plan, and then you would receive an email out of the blue that, oh, there are changes to this. Oh, this needs to be fixed. So honestly, it was like changing a tire while the car is running. It was quite complex and very difficult. And again, there was nobody to tell you what to do, because everybody was doing it for the first time. So when they came up with that digital archery thing, I was running around like a headless chicken trying to figure out who in the company can help me do this, because we needed a fast connection, right? Then that went out of the window. Then they said, oh, somebody has to travel to New York or DC,
Los Angeles
to pull something out of. So I was running around the company again. Whom do we have in that office who can go there and represent us? And who was the poor guy who will pull out and be the last one, and then I'll have to explain to the management why we are the last slot. So it wasn't easy, for sure. It wasn't easy. And you know, it's easier if it's just you making the decisions, providing answers and taking calls. But for every time, if you have to go around and explain to everybody why things have changed, why you can't do what you promised, now you need either more money or more support, it becomes very, very difficult.
So we're here today. We're in Puerto Rico, ICANN 79, and obviously there's a lot of talk about the next application round, which currently stands to open in just over 2 years' time. From your experience last time, and based on what you've learned since, when do you think companies should consider beginning their preparation if they're going to apply for especially a .brand?
Right. Stuart, I think they should start today. It might be already too late for some. I'll tell you a few reasons why. One, you have to get internal buy-in, right? And this is a digital world, right? Things change very fast. So you have to get buy-in from all the internal stakeholders for something that will start 2 years later. One. Secondly, a lot of companies have different budget cycles. And this is not peanuts. The amount of money we are talking about is significant, right? And it will come out of somebody's budget, and that team won't be happy about it. So you need to start getting internal buy-ins immediately, deciding on the strings you want to apply. Look at whether that string has any challenges with it, all right? And then seeking funds to fund this whole thing for the next 10 years. And that's a significant step. So I think it is the right time to think about it, jump into it immediately. You have to identify partners that can help you do this, because it's very difficult to do it yourself.
Okay.
So Vivek, you're part of a select group of people that's actually been through this ICANN application process before. So based on your experience and any lessons that you learned from that process, is there, say, a key piece of advice that you would give to any prospective applicant looking at applying in the next application round?
I think keeping your having a set of stakeholders, internal stakeholders, internal champions who will help you get through this thing is very important. Identify them right at the very start, bring them onto your team, and make sure you keep them in the loop. One. Secondly, have a good partner. Having a company or a partner that has done this before, knows the ins and out of it, is very important. Because no matter what anybody says, and even if you have a 120-page guidebook, things will change. The digital world changes overnight, right? So things will change, things will emerge. You need somebody who can see those challenges and prepare you now. Because like I said, it's very difficult to solve the challenge then, because one, you don't have the time, because you have to hit a deadline, and it's very difficult to get internal buy-in again when you realize that things have changed. So having a good partner who can foresee those things, tell you about the pitfalls up front, hold your hand through these things is very important.
So you're now on the other side of the table. Your organisation, LdotR, you work with brand holders in India and around the Indian subcontinent. If a client came to you and said, Vivek, why should we apply? What one bit of advice would you give them?
If you think internet is important for your business in any way, you cannot not apply. It will help you with protecting your brand. It will give you opportunities to be present in the online space like nothing else. Right? So if you are serious about operating in this space, then you have to apply.
Okay.
Interesting. Okay, and I think we've just got one last question for today. If there was one thing that you could change about the DotBrand application process from the last rounds, what would that be?
I would urge ICANN and others who are working on this and have been working on this to look at DotBrand as completely different than other open TLDs, and not apply the same level of scrutiny and evaluation and restrictions on a DotBrand as compared to an open TLD, because they are completely different animals, right? And it will also make it easier for brands to apply for it if the process was much simpler, because their usage is much simpler. It's much restricted, right? So if that can happen, it will make it much easier for DotBrands to apply and make it predictable. I mean, as a company, companies run on predictability. If they know when things will happen, they can plan for it. And in large corporates, it's very difficult to turn things around, in a few days, especially the size of this. So if they can make it predictable and simpler for DotBrands, that will go a long way in convincing a lot of companies to apply for this.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Vivek. Enjoy Puerto Rico, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Thank you.